The chamber of the Stellar Council glowed with cold blue light, a ring of tall windows showing the empty black of space. Delegates from many worlds sat in curved rows, their robes rich, their voices sharp. And today, their favorite target was a small world called Earth. "Primitive," hissed the scaled envoy of the Drav, his forked tongue flicking. "They mine rock with shovels and call it industry." Laughter rose like metal rain. "They fear the vacuum," croaked a feathered minister, tapping the desk with a thin beak. "They fear everything." A massive envoy from the Helix Dominion leaned forward, his armor plates grinding. "Two great empires will settle the matter," he boomed. "We will race to humble these humans, and we will do it publicly, so the galaxy learns to laugh correctly." More laughter, more mocking. The sound felt heavy and cruel. At the smallest desk sat the human envoy, a quiet woman in a dark suit, no medals, no robes, no guards, only a tablet and a still face. "Do you have anything to say?" "Human?" asked the council speaker, his eyes bright with victory he had not earned. She glanced at the windows, then at the tablet. "Yes," she said softly. "I do," a murmur rippled through the hall. "You dare address us with single voice," the Helix envoy rumbled. "Even your allies refuse to escort you." She nodded. "Commander, that is true," she said. We asked them not to." A new round of laughter. "You asked for your own humiliation," the feathered minister squawked. "How efficient." The human tapped her tablet. "I have brought a recording," she said. "It may add clarity." The lights dimmed, the windows shaded, and a wide hollow appeared over the center dais. It showed a star field with a pale sun and a thin belt of ice. Across the bottom ran a time code and a small label. "Outer Dark, Sector 9. A Drav captain appeared in inset, pride shining in reptilian eyes. "We strike now," he declared. "We will capture a human forward station and stream the surrender for council review." The Drav envoy in the chamber lifted his chin. "Pleased." "There," he said. "Understanding arrives." The hollow shifted to the black flank of a Drav dreadnought as drones fanned outward. "No human signals detected," a voice reported in the recording. "No thermal profile." The dreadnought advanced, guns idle, banners bright. Then the stars blinked, not all the stars, only a thin, curving line of them, as if a needle had been pulled through the night and left a faint silver wake. "Artifact," said a Drav officer on the hollow, voice uncertain. The wake shimmered, and the dreadnought's forward shields pulsed. "What is that?" someone whispered in the chamber. The human envoy did not answer. On the hollow, a whisper became a hurricane. The silver curve folded like a paper fan, and from the fold came shapes that ate light. Not big shapes, not grand. Only a string of small craft with claws of radio silence. They flickered, vanished, reappeared under the dreadnought's hull. "Intruders!" yelled the Drav captain. But the word broke into static. The hollow shook. The dreadnought's spine snapped with a soundless flash, and the view darkened as the recording drone tumbled. When the image stabilized, the dreadnought floated headless, crew pods spilling like sparks. "Impossible," breathed the feathered minister. "No signal, no heat, no launch signature." The human envoy tapped the tablet again. "Next segment," she said. The hollow showed a different banner now. The sigil of the rival empire. The Helix Strike Group arrived in shining blades. "We will salvage Drav shame," declared a Helix commander in the inset. "We will drag human scrap to the council steps." The chamber rustled with approval. The strike group advanced in spear formation. "Still no human emissions," a voice on the hollow reported. "Only wreckage." The human envoy finally spoke to the room. "We do not like to shout," she said. "Sometimes whispers are enough." On the hollow, the Helix ships launched sensor flares, white flowers blooming in that false noon. The wreckage of the Drav dreadnought glowed like a broken crown, and in its shadow moved the whispering shapes again. The Helix commander tried to pivot, but the spear was already pierced. Lines of light crossed the formation. Not beams, not missiles, something shorter, nearer, a bite instead of a punch, and one by one the blades lost power. "We are experiencing localized gravity shear," a Helix officer cried. "Engines decoupling, by whose field?" shouted the commander. But the answer was silence and a spreading ring of debris. The hollow froze, the time code blinking red. The windows cleared, starlight returning to the chamber like a slow breath. "A trick!" snarled the Helix envoy, rising to his full height. "Doctored images." "A primitive lie." The human envoy looked up at him, her voice steady. "You requested live proof," she said. "We arranged it." The speaker frowned. "Arranged." She nodded toward the windows. "Counselor, please rotate the station 40 degrees. The room erupted. "You cannot order the council. Security, remove—" The speaker hesitated. Curiosity flickering, he gestured to a control. The ring of windows rotated, showing a new slice of black. For a heartbeat there was nothing. Too much nothing, a darkness with a shape. Then the stars returned, not by lighting, but by moving. The delegates leaned forward as the smear resolved. It was not a smear, it was a field of wrecks, hundreds of them. Some large, some small, all drifting, all silent. The Drav envoy's crest sagged, the Helix envoy's fists opened and closed. "Impossible," the feathered minister whispered again. "How did you move this here?" The human envoy shook her head. "We did not," she said. "It happened here." A cold stillness fell over the chamber. Only the soft hum of air systems remained. "You attacked near our station," the speaker said, voice thin. "You risked us." "No," the envoy replied. "You risked us when you called our home primitive and announced your hunt." She placed the tablet flat, as if setting down a small stone. "We prefer quiet," she said. "We prefer business, trade, songs, children. We warned both empires to leave our borders or speak politely. They refused." The Helix envoy took a step toward her. Guards tensed. His voice dropped. "What are those ships?" she considered. "Patrol craft," she said. "New builds, cheap to maintain. We call them night boats." "How many night boats do you have?" he asked. "Enough," she said. Some delegates laughed again. But it sounded different now, like someone laughing after waking from a nightmare and finding the door still open. The Drav envoy swallowed. "What do you want?" he asked. The human looked around the ring of faces. "A fair council," she said. "No more public races to humiliate small worlds. No more streaming of surrenders. Speak to us as equals, and we will answer as friends. Keep calling us animals, and you will learn that we are not." Silence stretched. Then cracked as distant wreckage turned, a slow, ghostly ballet beyond the glass. The speaker rubbed his temples, then lifted the gavel. "Motion to censure the Drav and the Helix for reckless conduct near council space," he said. His voice wavered. "Motion to open trade talks with Earth." A dozen lights blinked yes, a few blinked no, and some blinked without pattern, fear and pride wrestling in their throats. The gavel fell, the human envoy stood. "Thank you," she said. "A good day for quiet people." She turned to go. The Helix envoy called after her, not shouting, not mocking. Only a question that felt like a hand reaching toward fire. "If we had apologized," he asked, "would your night boats have stayed sleeping?" She paused at the door. Not smiling, not hard, only tired. "We would have hosted you," she said. "We would have shown you our oceans and our small music and our food with too much spice. You would have called us primitive, and we would have laughed with you. But you chose a different lesson." The door slid shut behind her. The wrecks drifted in the black and in the chamber. For the first time in a long time, the council spoke softly, like people learning how to hear again. The void stretched forever, black and endless, broken only by the thin light of distant stars. In the silence of deep space, a fleet of alien warships moved like a wall of steel. Their banners glowed with pride, their engines burned bright. The Drav commander stood tall on his bridge, his scaled face filled with confidence. "Human space lies ahead," he said to his crew, "primitive and weak. They will not resist us." Laughter rippled across the command deck. His officers believed the stories they had been told, that humans were fragile, fearful, and slow to fight. But deep in the shadows, far from the glow of their engines, something stirred. The Drav fleet was not alone. Small shapes floated without light, hidden against the darkness. They had no banners, no signals, no sound, only silence, perfect and sharp. A young Drav officer frowned at his display. "Captain, I detect a distortion." the commander barked. "Explain, not a ship, not a signal," the officer replied, tapping nervously at his screen. "It is like a shadow moving across the stars," the commander laughed. "Shadows do not kill fleets, Lieutenant. Engage forward speed." The warships pushed deeper into the darkness. Engines roared, but the shadow moved with them. The officer swallowed. "It follows," he whispered. Before the commander could reply, alarms shrieked across the bridge. A smaller vessel at the edge of the fleet vanished. No explosion, no flame, just gone, cut away like a piece of paper. "What happened?" shouted the commander. "Report." The screens filled with static, then cleared, showing wreckage tumbling like bones in the void. The crew froze. "Enemy fire detected," cried another officer. "But the source? There is none." The commander growled, his crest rising in anger. "They dare hide." He slammed a claw against the console. "Activate all sensors, sweep the sector. Flush them out." The fleet lit the void with beams of light. Scanning every corner, every second revealed more emptiness. Then in the glare came movement, thin black ships, almost invisible, weaving between the beams. They darted close, striking like knives. One drav cruiser erupted in a silent flash. Cut open from within, the commander's eyes widened. "Impossible," he hissed. "No one builds warships so small, so silent." On another deck, a young officer shouted, "They are targeting engines, not shields." "They want us stranded," the commander snarled. Then fire blind, fire everywhere, dozens of cannons roared, lighting the dark with furious storms. But the small human ships vanished again, slipping between the flashes. Only wreckage remained, scattered bodies and broken steel drifting into the night. "Captain," the officer whispered, his scales pale. "They are not weak. They are hunters," the commander bared his teeth. "They are still mortal. They can still bleed. Rally the fleet. Form the wall." The ships shifted into tight formation, shields overlapping. They thought unity would protect them. For a moment silence returned. It seemed the attack was over. Crew whispered. Hope flickered. Then a human voice spoke across every channel. "Calm and clear. This is your only warning. Leave now." The words froze the drav bridge. The crew looked to their captain. He hissed, "Primitive," and spat on the floor. "They dare to threaten us with whispers forward." "Crush them!" The fleet surged again, but the darkness moved once more. This time the hunters came not in silence, but in force. Engines flared for the first time. Dark hulls ignited with lines of blue light. They cut through the draft formation like predators through prey. Explosions filled the void. Shields shattered. Ships fell apart piece by piece. The commander roared orders, but his crew no longer believed. Fear spread faster than his voice. Officers trembled. Some begged to retreat. Others prayed in silence. In minutes, half the fleet was gone. Drifting ruins, glowing like dying stars. The commander staggered back, his eyes burning with disbelief. "How?" he muttered. "How do they fight like this?" The answer came from his own officer. Trembling, "Because, Captain, they learned in silence. They built weapons not to show strength, but to survive." The human voice returned, steady as stone. "This is your final chance." The commander gripped his console, rage shaking him. "Never!" he shouted into the calm. "We are the drav, we do not kneel." For a heartbeat. The dark ships held still, then they vanished. The crew dared to hope. "Perhaps they have gone," whispered one. But then the shadow swallowed their flagship. A soundless flash tore through steel. The commander's last words were drowned in fire. When silence returned, only fragments remained. The once mighty fleet now drifted broken and burning. Their banners lost, their pride shattered. The surviving officers sent distress calls, but none were answered. Across the galaxy, whispers began to spread. Fleets that mocked humans had vanished into the void. And somewhere in the dark the hunters waited, unseen, silent, patient. The wreckage glowed faintly in the starlight, a warning carved into the night itself. Those who called humans primitive had learned the truth, not from words, not from counsels, but from fire in the dark, and the whispers carried far, telling every world the same tale. Humans do not shout, they do not boast, they wait in silence. And when the time comes, they strike. The Drav had called them weak. But now the galaxy knew better. Humanity was no prey. Humanity was the storm in the shadows. The wreckage of the First Fleet still floated in the darkness, glowing faintly like dying embers scattered across the void to the Helix Dominion. The defeat of their rivals was not a warning, but an invitation. On the bridge of the Helix flagship, Commander Varen stood tall, his armor gleaming. "The Drav were fools," he said, his voice echoing across the chamber. "They underestimated these humans. They fell because they were weak. We will succeed where they failed." His officers bowed their heads, though unease flickered in their eyes. A young officer raised a hand. "Commander, the scouts report no signals. No transmissions. The human space is silent." "Too silent," Varen laughed, the sound sharp. "Good. They hide because they are afraid. We will drag them into the light." He turned to his crew. "Plot a course. We advance. Leave no human alive." The fleet surged forward. Hundreds of warships moving as one, their engines burning bright against the dark. Hours passed as they crossed the silent border, wreckage from the Drav still drifting. Shattered hulls spinning like broken statues. Some Helix officers whispered to each other, their voices tight with fear. "Look at them, all destroyed, yet no survivors. No escape pods." Another officer shook his head. "The humans must have killed them all." Commander Varen slammed a fist onto the console. "Enough of this fear. They are primitive. They use tricks. We will not be deceived." Yet, as the words left his mouth, the ship's sensors flickered. An officer gasped, "Unidentified movement. Starboard side." The crew turned their eyes to the screens. A shadow passed across the stars. Faint and thin. A comet, one suggested. But the shadow curved, moving against the natural path. The officer's voice shook. "Not a comet, Commander, a ship," Varen sneered. "One ship cannot challenge us. Lock weapons." The gunners obeyed, but before they could fire, the shadow split into many smaller shadows. Dozens of silent hunters slipping between the stars. The fleet opened fire, cannons lighting up the void, explosions flashing across the wreckage. But the hunters did not burn. They twisted, vanished, reappeared behind the Helix ships. One frigate screamed across the comm. "They are inside our formation." The message cut to static, and the frigate bloomed into fire. The crew of the flagship froze, watching helplessly. "How can they strike so close without warning?" whispered an officer. Commander Varan's jaw clenched. "They will pay." The humans struck with precision. Engines first, then weapons, leaving their enemies blind and powerless. The Helix fleet tried to regroup, but panic spread. Captains shouted over each other. "Pull back! Hold the line! Where are they?" The shadows circled again, this time attacking in waves. Their weapons were silent, but the destruction was louder than thunder. Varen gripped the railing, fury in his eyes. "Signal the fleet, break formation, hunt them down." The ships scattered into smaller groups, chasing the hunters through the wreckage of the Drav. For a moment, the Helix believed they had gained the advantage. Until the shadows multiplied, more ships appeared, rising from the graveyard of the fallen, as if the wreckage itself had birthed them. The officers stared in disbelief. "They were here the whole time." A human voice cut across the comms, calm and cold. "You should not have come." The crew froze. Hearing the language translated instantly, Varen snarled, "Show yourself, coward." "Face me," the voice replied. "You wanted a war. Now you have one." Then the attack began again, fiercer than before. Helix cruisers spun helplessly as engines were torn apart. Battleships fired into empty space, hitting nothing but debris. Every strike from the humans was precise, cutting away strength piece by piece. The Helix commander tried to rally his officers. "Stand firm. We are stronger." But their strength meant nothing against shadows they could not catch. One by one, the lights of his fleet went dark. Finally, only the flagship remained. Battered and broken, smoke filled the bridge. Sparks rained from the ceiling. An officer cried out, "Commander, we must retreat. If we jump now, we might survive." Varen slammed the console. "Retreat is death, victory, or nothing." At that moment, the human voice returned, softer this time, almost pitying. Your pride has cost you, just as it cost the Drav, the commander roared into the comm. We are not the Drav, we are Helix. We do not surrender. The silence after his words was more terrifying than any weapon. Then, without warning, the hunters surrounded the flagship. Their dark hulls flickered with faint blue lines. Weapons primed, Varen stared at the screens, his voice finally breaking. "What are you?" The human voice answered. "Survivors." The hunters struck as one. The flagship shook, its shields collapsed, its hull tearing apart, the bridge filled with smoke and fire. Varen gripped the railing until the last moment, his eyes wide with disbelief. Then everything went white when the wreckage cooled. The second fleet drifted alongside the first, two mighty empires reduced to silence. Across the galaxy, whispers spread faster than light. They called humans primitive, weak, unworthy of the stars. But now, two great fleets lay broken and burning in the darkness. The galaxy realized a truth it had long denied. Humanity was no prey. Humanity was the shadow in the void, waiting with patience, striking with fire, and leaving only silence behind. The battlefield in space was silent now, two great alien fleets reduced to ruins, their wreckage drifting like broken bones through the void. But the war was not over on distant worlds. Whispers spread like wildfire. Delegates in the Stellar Council argued in hushed voices. Some called it a tragedy, others called it impossible, but none dared to deny the truth. Humanity had destroyed two empires in the dark, on the bridge of a Helix survivor ship. Panic filled the air. Officers shouted over one another. Sparks falling from broken panels, engines offline. "Shields failing," cried one. Another screamed. "The humans are still out there." A captain gripped the railing, his claws shaking. "Send a message," warned the Dominion. "Tell them what we saw." His words were cut short as the lights flickered, and a shadow passed across the viewport. The crew fell silent, staring at the black outline of a human ship drifting beside them. No lights, no signals, only the quiet hum of death. A voice came across the comm, calm and cold. "You should not be here." The captain swallowed hard. "We surrender," he said quickly. "We will leave, spare us." For a long moment, silence answered. Then the voice spoke again. "There will be no second chance. Leave our border. Never return." The human ship moved away, vanishing into the wreckage. The Helix crew slumped in their chairs, alive but broken. They had seen what others had not. The humans gave mercy. But only once, far across the galaxy, the council chambers shook with argument. The Drav envoy slammed his fist on the table. "Lies," he hissed. "Human tricks and shadows." "Nothing more?" The Helix envoy glared at him, his voice rough with shame. "We lost entire fleets. Do you call that a trick? Then you are weak," the Drav spat. "We would never fall so easily." A voice interrupted them, quiet but sharp. The human envoy stood at her desk, hands folded. "You will fall just the same." Gasps rippled through the chamber. The speaker raised his hand. "Order, you dare threaten us." The human envoy did not blink. "No," she said calmly. "I warn you. Two fleets attacked us and burned. Do not send a third." Some laughed. Though the sound was nervous, one delegate whispered, "How can primitives fight empires?" Another replied, "Perhaps they are not primitives at all." While the council debated, far from their reach, survivors from both fleets gathered in secret. They met in hidden stations, wounded and angry. Some wanted revenge. Others only feared what they had seen. A Drav officer leaned across the table, his eyes bloodshot. "They fight like ghosts. We could not even see them," a Helix commander growled. "Then we learn, we adapt. We strike back with greater force." "You do not understand," the officer whispered. "It is not their ships, it is their silence." The survivors did not know that even here, in their secret refuge, human eyes were watching. A small drone clung to the hull, silent as frost, transmitting every word back to Earth. On a hidden base in the asteroid belt, human commanders studied the feed. A general leaned forward, his face calm. "They will try again," he said. "They will gather strength. They will come with fury." A younger officer frowned. "Can we hold against another war?" The general's eyes were steady. "We do not need to hold. We only need to remind them." The next move came sooner than anyone expected, a coalition fleet. Not Drav or Helix alone, but a mix of both. Limped toward human borders. Their ships were damaged but desperate, hoping numbers would grant them courage. On the bridge of one cruiser, the commander growled, "If we destroy even one human warship, the galaxy will believe again in our strength." But deep down, his hands trembled. He had seen the wrecks. He had heard the silence, the fleet pushed into human space. Weapons charged, but the darkness was waiting. The first sign was not ships, but a voice, carried across every channel. "You were warned." Then the shadows moved again. Black ships slipping through the wreckage. Engines died, shields cracked, fear spread like fire. "Form ranks!" the coalition commander shouted. "Do not break." But his voice could not stop the panic. One Drav officer screamed, "They are inside the formation," a Helix captain cried. "We cannot track them." Ships exploded one by one. Bursts of light fading quickly into the void. The coalition had hoped for glory, but all they found was silence and fire. In less than an hour, half their ships were gone, the rest fleeing into the black. Back at the council, reports arrived. Trembling messengers delivering the news. The speaker's face turned pale. "Another fleet lost!" The chamber erupted. Fear swallowed pride. Arguments turned to whispers for the first time. The great empires hesitated. They had called humans primitive, but now they feared them. In her seat, the human envoy rose once more. Her voice was calm, steady, final. "How many fleets will you burn before you listen? We asked for peace, we asked for respect. You answered with fire, now you know what fire feels like." The chamber fell silent. No laughter, no mocking, only the sound of fear. Far away in the cold dark, human ships drifted unseen, watching, waiting. The galaxy thought them fragile, but the truth was now carved into the void itself. 2 empires had mocked them, 2 empires had fallen, and the rest of the stars would never forget the night they learned to fear the silence. The ruins of the coalition fleet drifted like broken lanterns across the void. Pieces of metal turned slowly, reflecting pale starlight on every world. Whispers spread of human power, yet in the council chamber, pride still fought against fear. Some called for peace, others demanded war. The arguments grew hotter each day. On Earth, the mood was different. In a hidden base beneath the surface, human commanders studied the reports with steady eyes. "They will come again," one officer said quietly. "Stronger, angrier." A general leaned forward. His hands folded. "Yes, but their strength is their weakness. They think numbers will save them. They do not understand silence," a young technician asked. "What if they send everything? An entire armada?" The general looked at the stars on the display, his face calm. "Then we will remind them again, far from Earth. In the dark reaches of space, the survivors of the Drive and Helix nursed their wounds. Their ships were broken, their fleets scattered, but their pride still burned. In a secret station, their leaders argued. "We must strike at their home world," snarled a Drav commander. "Burn it, crush them, make the galaxy forget this shame." A Helix officer shook his head. "We could not even defeat their patrol ships. Do you think we can touch their world?" But the voices grew louder. Desperation choking reason. They wanted revenge more than victory. One night, as the station hung silent, a strange sound echoed through its halls. An alarm. Doors sealed, lights flickered, soldiers ran to their posts. "Intruder detected," the system cried. Panic spread. "Where?" shouted a commander. "How?" Then the screens filled with static, and a single voice broke through, calm and cold. "You should not have gathered here." The soldiers froze, weapons raised. The voice was human. A moment later, explosions shook the station. Not from outside, but from within. Small craft had slipped past their defenses. Boarding teams moving like shadows. Gunfire echoed in the corridors. Soldiers screamed. The Drav commander roared. "Fight them!" But every hallway seemed to collapse under sudden strikes. Every room filled with smoke. In less than an hour, the station was burning. On the bridge, the Helix officer looked at the human team who stood before him. Helmets dark, rifles steady. "Why?" he asked, voice shaking. "Why not kill us all?" One soldier lowered his weapon slightly. His voice calm through the translator. "Because the galaxy needs to hear you speak. They need to know what happens when you call us weak." Then they vanished into the smoke, leaving the survivors alive but ruined. The story spread quickly, faster than any council speech. Survivors told of humans moving like ghosts, of weapons that left no trace, of voices that carried no anger, only warning. Worlds far from Earth began to whisper differently now. Some spoke with fear, but some spoke with respect. Trade offers began to appear, quiet and cautious. Small planets sent envoys to Earth, asking for peace. In the council chamber, the speaker struck his gavel. "Order," he shouted. "This cannot continue. Humanity has destroyed fleets, stations, alliances, and still they rise. We must decide, war or peace." The Drav envoy's crest was low, his voice bitter. "Peace," he spat. "If we fight again, we burn again," the Helix envoy growled. "They made us kneel." "No," the human envoy said softly, rising from her seat. "We asked only that you stand beside us. You chose to strike instead. That was your mistake." The chamber fell silent. All eyes turned to her. She spoke slowly, her words carrying weight. "We did not seek war. We do not seek empire. We want only respect. If you give it, we will be your friends. If you deny it, we will be your shadow." The delegates shifted in their seats, fear and shame mixing with something else. Understanding beyond the chamber, in the dark of space. Human ships drifted silently, watching. Their weapons were hidden, their engines cold. They did not boast. They did not shine, but they were there, always waiting. The galaxy now knew this truth. Calling humans primitive had been the greatest mistake of all. The Drav envoy finally lowered his head. "What choice do we have?" he muttered. The Helix envoy remained silent, his pride crushed. And the speaker raised his gavel once more. "Then let it be known. Humanity will be recognized as equal in the council." The gavel fell with a sharp crack, echoing like thunder through the chamber. The human envoy gave a single nod. "Then perhaps," she said softly, "the darkness can rest." But outside, far beyond the council windows, the wreckage of 2 fleets still burned faintly in the void, a reminder carved into the stars themselves. The galaxy would never forget the night they mocked humanity and paid the price. For in the silence of the dark, the humans had waited, and when the time came, they struck like shadows, and those who survived carried the memory forever. The galaxy was quieter now, yet silence did not mean peace. 2 great fleets lay broken in the void, their wrecks circling the stars like warnings carved into the night. In the Stellar Council, whispers had turned to uneasy respect. Some worlds sent envoys to Earth with trade offers, while others kept their distance, afraid to provoke the shadows again. But not all accepted the new truth. Some still burned with pride. Some still believed humanity could be broken. In the cold reaches of space, on a hidden world of ice, a secret meeting took place. Delegates from smaller empires, fearful of losing power, sat around a long metal table. The air was tense. "They are growing stronger," said a tall figure with insect-like limbs. "If we do nothing, soon they will be more than shadows. They will be rulers." Another delegate, his face covered with scales, hissed, "We cannot allow that." The Drav and Helix failed because they underestimated. "We must be smarter." "Smarter how?" one asked. His voice trembling, the scaled envoy leaned forward. "We do not fight them in the dark. We drag them into the light." Meanwhile, on Earth, the human envoy returned from the council chambers, her face calm, though her eyes carried the weight of long nights. In a meeting room deep underground, generals and officers waited for her. "The council bends," one general said. "But not enough," she nodded. "They fear us, but fear can turn to hate. They will try again, not with one empire, not with 2, but with many." The room fell into silence. A young officer asked, "Then what do we do?" The envoy placed her hands on the table. "We prepare, and when they come, we remind them again." The reminder came sooner than expected. Human scouts detected movement at the edge of known space. Hundreds of ships, not from a single empire, but a mix of many. They had gathered in secret, forming a coalition fueled by fear. Their commanders spoke proudly. If we strike together, they cannot hide. If we burn their world, the shadows will fade. The coalition moved like a storm, confident, loud, certain of their strength. On the edge of human space, a lone patrol ship picked up the signal. The captain frowned. "Too many," he whispered. "Far too many," his second-in-command asked. "Should we send a warning?" The captain nodded. "Send it now, then cut power. We wait in silence." The small ship went dark, blending into the void, watching as the storm drew closer. When the warning reached Earth, the War Council gathered. Maps of stars lit the room, red markers spreading like fire across the borders. A general slammed his fist against the table. "An entire armada," he growled. "Hundreds of ships. They will strike our core." Another shook his head. "We cannot fight them head-on, not yet." The human envoy raised her voice. "Calm, but firm. Then we will not fight them head-on. We will fight them as we always have, in silence." The coalition fleet crossed the border with banners high, sending loud transmissions. "Humans," one commander boomed. "Come out of your holes, face us if you do not. We will burn your world to ash." His words echoed across the stars, but no answer came. They fired warning shots into empty space. The void remained silent. "Where are they?" muttered an officer. "They fear us," the commander said with a cruel smile. "They hide just as we knew." But the silence was not fear. It was preparation. In the darkness beyond their sensors, human ships were already in motion, small and fast like predators circling prey. A human captain whispered to his crew, "Wait for the signal. Strike only when the stars shift." The crew nodded, hands steady on controls. Then it happened. A distant star blinked just for a second. That was the signal. The hunters moved. They came from all sides at once. Striking with precision, engines died. Weapons failed. Screams filled the coalition channels. "They are here!" shouted one commander. "Shadows!" All around us, panic spread through the fleet. The coalition fired wildly, lighting the void with bursts of fire, but the humans did not meet them in open battle. They vanished and reappeared, hitting weak points, dragging their enemies deeper into chaos. One ship after another exploded, the light fading quickly into the endless black. "Pull back!" screamed an officer. "We cannot win," but retreat was already impossible. On the flagship, a commander trembled as he watched his fleet burn. "How can they do this?" he muttered. "We had numbers. We had power," his aide whispered. "It is not power they use, it is patience." Just then, a human voice cut across the channel, calm, steady, unshaken. "You were warned, and still you came. This is the end." The commander fell to his knees, eyes wide with terror. Around him, his ships fell silent one by one. The great coalition armada, built on fear and pride, was gone in less than a night. The wreckage drifted with the others, broken, burning, forgotten, back on Earth. The human envoy stood once more in the council chamber. Her voice carried through the silence. "3 times you sent your fleets, 3 times they burned. How many more must die before you listen?" No one laughed this time. No one mocked. The chamber was filled only with fear and a new kind of respect. The speaker bowed his head. "Perhaps," he said softly, "it is time to stop underestimating humanity." The envoy nodded. It was time long ago, and with those words, the galaxy knew its balance had shifted. Humanity had stepped from the shadows, not as prey, but as the hunters of the dark. And the stars themselves seemed to remember, glowing faintly over the wreckage of fleets that once called them primitive, but now called them something else entirely. Unstoppable.